We already have an energy shortage. Where are we going to get the energy to use desalination? And a lot of corporations are saying nuclear technologies. Well, nuclear technologies are really not viable. We have no current plan to deal with nuclear waste.
You know, it's no different from saying to ourselves that we're going to go into space after making a mess out of this planet. We go into Mars, we relocate there, or we colonize space itself and colonize another planet. And having made a mess out of our own situation, having failed to live up to our own responsibilities in relationship to nature, we then move on to destroy another piece of nature and leave the mess behind.
The fact that there aren't more plants in the world is because it's a cost factor.
Only rich countries or the World Bank or big corporations or a combination of all three are going to be able to afford to build desalination plants.
But even on the slim chance that technology can advance quickly enough, that the energy costs and needs lower enough to make a global desalination solution possible, the question still remains, why? Why forfeit the water we already currently have? Why freely give it to others only so they can sell it back to us at whatever cost the demand allows?
This changed the law. Bottled water exports or exports of water in any form are hereby prohibited.
Which is very different from most uses of water. Even agricultural uses have return flows, and it's available for reuse again and again. But once you put water in a bottle and you move it out of state, it's gone.
You made that a product. We invested. It's a private good. You can't take it from us anymore. It's too late. You open the door. Michigan is telling the world, come in and buy water rights here. And by the way, under this case, if you can demonstrate an economic benefit of shipping it somewhere else, you can have it. Changing the way water has been perceived as a public resource in a way that we may not be able to retreat if we make a mistake. And that's the problem.
When you take water out of its natural water basin and then ship it or move it, we know something about the ecological fallout from that. We don't know the full picture.
What happened to the Aral Sea? The Aral Sea was a lake, in fact, that was so huge that they called it a sea. And the countries around of the old Soviet Union decided to grow cotton in the desert and started siphoning off this water. And it's almost completely gone now.
If we massively ship water out of an area, the ecosystem is disrupted. The natural habitat damaged, biodiversity reduced, and aquifers dried. The water-rich area we chose to export from will itself desertify. The thirsty populations in the water-poor deserts we ship water to will simply consume the water and send it back to the sea via its sewers, thus still remaining a desert. Where one desert region existed before, two deserts now exist.
The Chinese, the symbol for water, not only means water, it means control, which I think is quite profound in the sense that controlling water is everything.
The word rivals, for instance, comes from Latin meaning river. The rivals were people standing on either side of the river throwing things at each other.
And you're just going to see more of that as the technology develops to be able to suck water out of the atmosphere. Now you're going to find water from the atmosphere in clouds being stolen.
New techniques for controlling the weather are being tried. When conditions are right, rain is made to fall by seeding clouds with dry ice or silver iodine.
It's happening in China and some other places where a particular village pays for a plane to go up. They make it rain before the cloud gets to the next village. So there's real anger and real political tension.
We're going to see a whole new geopolitical picture emerging here where the world map will be rewritten and redesigned. They've already mapped out what are going to be the the most intense areas of potential conflict in the next 10, 15, and 20 years. So the water-rich areas of the world are Brazil, Canada, Russia.
So these big superpowers are beginning to position themselves in such a way that water, like energy, is seen as part of their future security, including their military security, including their commercial security. And they're beginning to understand they have to secure future sources of water.
We need to dig holes. If we dig holes in the sand, we can trick the water into staying so it doesn't run away to a river or ocean when it rains. The water will sit in the holes and soak into the ground. Then more trees will grow.
As we expand urbanization to meet our growing population needs, there are alternative permeable pavement solutions which allow rainwater to infiltrate through into the subsoil. Pollutants from cars are filtered and removed and thus do not pollute the groundwater. The water quality is actually improved. Even with these advancements, the ultimate development solution is to limit the population growth of a region pending on the available water supply, which is exactly what the citizens of Bolinas, California did.
And so the towns decided that they would put a moratorium on all housing growth until they had adequate supply of water. And that water moratorium was challenged immediately and was in courts for 14 years. They just didn't want a town to be able to control growth. They considered it interference with commerce. But ultimately we won, and yeah, it's working.
What we can learn from the Bolinas example is the whole challenge to learn to live within the limits of our watersheds.
And in this village where we really have shortage of water, we use some water that is being poured on your hands as you wash your hands sparingly. And people really value any amount of water that they have.
It's exactly the opposite of America. I mean, America could save 20 to 30% of its water really easily. If we adopted the toilet style of Israel, for instance, which has 2 buttons, one for urine and one for feces, the one for urine is less than a quart.
You know, everybody takes water for granted. We're going to have to grow a constituency for water issues. Think about climate change. Groups have been working on climate change for 20 years, and it's taken that long for the general public to be aware of it and for us to begin to make the legislative and regulatory changes that are necessary to really solve the problem. We need to do that for water.
To call for a United Nations Convention that explicitly states that water is a human right and a public trust that must not be denied to anyone on the basis of inability to pay. Demanding that we put this language in an international framework at the United Nations. Because the operations of these corporations, these water barons, have now gone global, this has gone beyond nation-state law and requires us to bring in some kind of instrument at an international level to control these companies.
And that led to the really exciting change in Uruguay.
En el Uruguay se privatizó el servicio de distribución de agua potable. A poco de haberse establecido, los precios se elevaron exorbitantemente. El agua que se distribuyó en algún momento estuvo contaminada. Se llegó incluso a cortarle el servicio a una escuela. Los uruguayos, con una larga tradición democrática, promovieron la reforma de la Constitución,
where citizens were able to pass a constitutional amendment that actually established the right to water and forbids privatization.
That's the model that we've been using when we talk to groups around the world and the model that we're promoting. So we're looking for a small group of nations to begin a process within the process in the United Nations. There are some powerful countries opposing the right to water, most prominently the United States. To my eternal shame, my own country, Canada.
It has a lot of water resources, and they're concerned about having to send water to the United States.
China, Egypt, Australia, and possibly India.
They don't want to have to be responsible for providing their citizens water.
This is life and death what we're talking about, and I feel very, very strongly that we have to put ourselves out there on the line, and sometimes it can be dangerous.
To the disapproval of the citizens of the small town of Freiburg, Maine, the water bottling company Poland Springs set up a plant. To appease the population, Poland Springs gave away a case of bottled water to the first 50 townspeople to visit their office. Led by 89-year-old Republican store owner Howard Dearborn, they poured the bottled water into Lovewell's Pond, back where it came from.